From heartbreak to healing, a real story, a wife cheating and husband's forgiveness. It's unbelievable interesting story of today affairs. Before start the story, please subscribe my channel for more stories. Here's a romantic, deeply emotional love story that explores forgiveness, self-discovery, and reconciliation within the theme of infidelity. Let's begin. Ethan had known for weeks that something was wrong. Rachel, his wife of 10 years, had been distant, preoccupied with thoughts that she never shared. She'd return home late, claiming extra work, leaving him with a strange hollowness that grew with each lie. One evening, as Ethan looked through his office window, he made the decision to confront her. It was painful, yes, but in his heart, he still clung to hope that this might be a temporary lapse. After all, they had built a life together, shared dreams, sorrows, and promises. But recently, Rachel's laughter felt different. He saw her smile, but it wasn't for him. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in the living room, waiting, hours passing like years. When the clock struck 2, Rachel finally entered, her face flushed with the remnants of a happiness she no longer shared with him. She froze when she saw him, her eyes widening in shock and guilt. Ethan's calm, unreadable expression made her falter. She knew that he knew. "Sit down, Rachel," he said quietly, his voice laced with an unfamiliar intensity. She swallowed, her lips trembling, but she sat, unable to meet his gaze. Ethan began softly, "I know there's someone else. I know you've been seeing him." He paused, letting his words sink in. "What I don't know is why." Rachel looked away, shame and sorrow reflected in her eyes. She struggled for words, then finally whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen. I don't even know why it did." In that moment, Ethan saw something he hadn't expected, a genuine vulnerability, a crack in the mask she wore. Beneath her guilt, he saw the woman he had fallen in love with all those years ago. The silence between them was heavy, yet Ethan felt compelled to break it. "Rachel, what's missing between us?" He looked at her, his own vulnerability laid bare. "Was there something I didn't give you?" She shook her head, wiping a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "It wasn't you. You've always been there, always loved me. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. I started chasing someone who made me feel like I was a new person, someone else." Ethan took a deep breath, and his heart ached at the confession. But he realized that her words had a truth he hadn't fully grasped before. Maybe she wasn't the only one who had changed. They both had, and they had let the small moments of love slip away in the monotony of daily life. "I won't force you to stay, Rachel," he said softly, though every fiber of his being wanted to reach out, to pull her close. "But I want to try if you're willing. I don't want us to just give up." Rachel's gaze finally met his, and in that moment, she realized how much she had taken him for granted. She'd been chasing a fleeting feeling, a version of herself she thought she wanted. But sitting there, watching Ethan's raw pain, she knew that she would never find another love so steady and true. She reached out, placing her hand over his. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to find a way back if you'll let me." Ethan nodded, and with that, they both understood it would be a journey, a painful one, with no easy answers. They couldn't erase what had happened, but they could choose to begin again, to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. Months passed, and though the road was difficult, they worked together, healing bit by bit. Ethan learned to express his needs, to bring his fears into the light. Rachel learned to let go of the illusions she had held and to appreciate the quiet, enduring love she had once dismissed. In time, they discovered that love was not always about passion or excitement, but about forgiveness, patience, and a commitment to grow together, even through the darkest times. And as they sat together years later, hand in hand, they realized that their love, though scarred, had grown stronger, anchored in the lessons of a second chance.